Hello and welcome everyone, I am Madals and welcome to game 1 of this best of 3. It is from the HP Trophy 2 and it is between VortiX, the yellow Zerg player in the top right position, who is up against AiReaL, the blue Protoss in the lower left. The map is Cloud Kingdom, and of course we're going to be seeing a PvZ. So what does Cloud Kingdom have in store for us? Let's think a little bit about the map, and we're going to actually look at this from VortiX's side, because this third base is likely to be a very big deciding factor of this game. Purely based on the fact that it is almost certainly the busiest and most difficult expansion to hold, because this area can become so busy, and by busy I mean just have so much action going on in it, due to the nature that you can get units as a Protoss player up into here without much hassle. You can chuck down some force fields between the hatchery and of course the ramp, which means that as a result reinforcements can't get in. As a Protoss you can engage the enemy force very well indeed, and should this area be defended quite nicely, well, guess what, you've got this very large area you can come in at as well. That means that as a Protoss player you can get a huge arc through here and you're able to attack very comfortably and get the absolute maximum effect out of your army through positioning. However, should you not want to be taking an aggressive stance in this game, such as a 2-base all-in, well, your own third base isn't too difficult to take. You can, again, use the fact that between the base and also this wall here, the gap is quite small, and use gateways in order to wall that off, just so you can get in a very comfortable defensive position. You can also chuck down 2 gateways and a pylon here in order to make sure that you've walled off at your natural, and be really quite comfortable against any Zerg aggression. So, all in all, there's options open to the Protoss player, and the Zerg really has to respond to those. Now, in terms of what VortiX is doing, everything going right at the moment. He's getting down the spawning pool first. Follow up will be obviously a hatchery. The probe going to try and block this. You see some Zerg players straight away just go and take the third base, knowing that eventually they're going to need it. AiReaL, on the other hand, is going Nexus first. I can see that without even looking, just because he had enough minerals for it and there was no forge down. But there goes down the hatchery for VortiX. And the probe still coming and checking around. VortiX is going to be wanting to take his third base now at around the 4-minute mark. Slightly earlier due to the fact that there was no forge first, and rather a Nexus first. So that is essentially the mid-game and the plan we're going to be seeing all the way through. Of course, being a best of 3, you've got to think a little bit about the psychology of what's going to be going on these two players. Neither's going to want to take a risk in game 1, and instead you want to just keep a good track of your opponent. What are they doing? Where are some weaknesses you can try and exploit? Where do they maybe cut a few corners? And how can you go into game 2 and really exploit those should you not win this first game? So that is really the thought process you're always going to be having going into a best of 3, a best of 5 or whatever. That the earlier games, you want to make sure that you really are scouting out not only the opponent's playstyle that game, but generally where they're strong and where they're weak, if you haven't already done your research beforehand. VortiX here now, getting up that first gas quite early. The pylon block coming down to the third base is going to really delay it by a long period of time, because as we can see, there's only the 4 Zerglings out on the field, and they're already poking and prodding down here. There was a wall-off coming down, so it was fine, not much to worry about, but obviously, because that wall-off's there, the pylon could have blocked longer, although it seems the AiReaL was happy to force the cancel. But as we were already seeing, a big delay on this third base when you think that ideally you'd want to be getting at about 4 to 4 minutes 20, and we're already nearly at the 5-minute mark with no drone in sight. Looking around though, this single Zergling running around, just getting a good check. On this map, for any Zerg players, I suggest you leave one Zergling down by the third. That's always a good plan. It's not even on this map, on any map against Protoss as Zerg, always leave a Zergling on Overlord at the third base. And also, I suggest putting a Zergling just outside their natural. Those 2 Zerglings are 1 supply and 50 minerals, but it means you know exactly when your opponent moves out and when their expansion timings are, which can be so effective. The big thing I'm seeing from VortiX though, is we're still not getting a third base. That is absolutely massive. It's because he got this gas down a little bit faster and he got speed, but it's not going to help him in the slightest, because as we can see, this wall off is really pretty solid. There's no way with the cannon there that Zerglings alone are going to be able to punch through. VortiX though, with only the 1 gas, has got to be starting to think about this. He's banking up an awful lot of minerals and instead going straight up to lair. So we are seeing an incredibly unusual strategy out of VortiX here, and I can't wait to see how he's going to start exploiting it. He does have a couple of options available to what he can do. He could do a lot of Roach-Ling pressure. He's getting down some additional gas now, so it's possible he's going for a 2-base muta play. That is the only other option I can really think of straight away. There is some dead space behind the main which you could try and exploit, but as we can see here, AiReaL is getting down that Stargate already, which means he's going to have Phoenix out, so should muta be the choice, it's not going to be be effective, and VortiX could be in a lot of trouble here. But as we can see, for the time being, we've got some Zerglings poking and prodding, running around. They are going to be able to pick off this Zealot quite comfortably, only actually losing one Zergling there, so great cost-effective engagement for VortiX at the moment, who at the moment has only lost those 25 minerals and has done 200 minerals worth of damage, but of course that included a pylon and stuff cancelling. So, as we can see, VortiX speed done, he's got map control, he's got great map awareness, and is now chucking down the infestation pit. My goodness, this build is pretty funky. Like, this is a seriously funky build without this third base. This is pretty crazy, to be honest. It's very, very aggressive. We've got the second cannon coming down here now for real, so he's clearly getting a little bit worried about what could be coming out. The Stargate is producing those Phoenix. We've got 3 additional gateways as well as the robotics facility. That second cannon is now getting cancelled. Clearly VortiX was just concerned, well, the real was concerned VortiX was going something with these Zerglings, so that is all fine now. We've got the Roach Warren as well as the infestation pit finishing up. A lot of Zerglings on their way, but as we can see, to be honest, Real is there at an equal worker count, all but one, and he's on an equal base count, which is never too fun for a Zerg player. So VortiX is obviously going to try and hit a nice timing. He's getting out he's going to be getting out a lot of roaches, and he's got pathogen glands on the way. So definitely a 2-base timing push. And Real clearly does not have any information about this. He hasn't scouted recently, so he has no clue what's going on. The Phoenix is now just getting the scout off, sees that the Roachron's there, sees the infestation pit, and sees that the hatchery is only just building now. And as a result, he should be very aware of, hang on, VortiX is going to be super aggressive soon. Meanwhile though, the Phoenix has of course been revealed, so we've got the Spore Crawlers coming down, we've had a couple of Overlords picked off, and all in all, these Phoenix are not going to be too effective in the head-on engagement that VortiX is definitely looking to force very, very shortly. The second cannon needed. That's in direct response to seeing that Roachron and infestation pit and lack of the third base. It just screams, I'm going to come and attack you. I'm going to try and kill you. You know that you're going to be ahead in economy as the Protoss player in this situation due to that third base being so late. So all in all, Real has got to just hold off and hold the aggression. He will be in a very comfortable spot. The Infestor's now moving across. We've got the Robotics Bay coming out for the Protoss player, as well as Charge for Zealots. So these Zealots are going to be charging. They've got the 2 sentries in the Warp Prism as well. So some nice dropping going to go down, some nice aggression going to go down, probably a warping. We are at, what's that, 3 and 4 gate. So 4 gates, not too much potential there. These Infestors could potentially chuck down a fungal growth and stop that Warp Prism with the 2 queens there as well, and a few infested Terrans. Picking off that Warp Prism will be very good, but I very much doubt the VortiX is going to spot it in time. He does see it now, but he doesn't have units there, and as a result, this Warp Prism going to come in unobstructed, moving a bit close to that Spore Crawler, though. He needs to move back slightly now, and is dropping the final sentry out, now going to come back, picking up those sentries, realizing, hang on, there's a lot of roaches there, a lot of speedlings, I'm not comfortable engaging, I'm going to keep my sentries alive, because ultimately they are expensive, but there goes the Infestors with the fungal growth, the 4 infested Terrans, and with that, the Warp Prism gets taken down, and that was a great little win there for VortiX. Already, we're seeing Real losing quite a lot. He's getting his second robotics facility. VortiX does now have his third base up. It's just mining the gas from it though, so it's sitting at 55 workers, which is something we would hardly ever see against Protoss. And all in all, he does have the earlier infestation pit and tech, obviously, but what he doesn't have is much economy, so he's investing a lot in this aggression, and I'm really shocked that he didn't take that third base sooner. And as far as we can see, it's purely just to be more defensive. He had more units out, but didn't really do anything with them. And when you think that you can get an 11-minute Roachling max out as Zerg, then what is your aim other than getting a few extra Infestors? But out come all of these infested Terrans. This third base certain to be forced to cancel right now. We do have a Colossus on its way across, but that's going to have to be very, very careful not to die to a quick stealth forward by those roaches. But as we can see, the infested Terrans are doing great damage. They're going to pick off these pylons. The Nexus cancelled already there for Real, so he will not be able to take his own third. VortiX able to stay 1 base up still, but as we can see, with the double robotics facility, 2 Colossi produced at a time, this is going to be getting a very, very tough for VortiX to punch into. He is getting his Spire down. These roaches running straight past, taking a bit of damage, but also getting some nice scouting information off. The Phoenix still running around, getting a good look, getting a good scout out at, hey, what is VortiX getting? Has he gone for his 4th base yet? No, he hasn't. That's fine. The Spire has not been scouted at all, so that's fine. The second evolution chamber hasn't either. So the upgrade advantage is not going to be huge, but it's still there. The upgrades, of course, obviously 2-0 compared to about to be 1-2, so that will level it out quite normally, to be honest. It's going to be a slight advantage for VortiX, assuming the engagement doesn't come before that. The 4th base now on his way, and obviously the Hive is as well. So straight up to Broodlords, it would appear, is the plan for the yellow Zerg player. But Real, he needs to scout this out. He needs to see the Hive timing and also the Spire timing in order to react appropriately. He's got a nice army here, and if he were to push forward and get a few more gateways out, he'd be in a much stronger position, because obviously he'd have the spoil, and that's what he's essentially building together now. This double robotics facility you don't often see off 2 bases alone, so that's why there's not that many gateway units there, and why VortiX is so far ahead in terms of the supply. Now, the other thing to note for VortiX his Spire is now finished. He's getting those Corruptors out. That's going to help massively with the Colossus. And the Templar Archives is on the cards for real. So that's teching towards those Archons. Able to deal with basically any kind of air threat with the splash damage. Also pretty strong units. Allows Real to spend more of his gas. And with the 3rd base up, once it starts going, it will definitely be a comfortable position for Real, being on 3 bases. The 4th base for VortiX is the threat. But all in all, as a Protoss player in this situation, you don't really have to be too worried until you see Broodlords out. I love the fact that these Phoenix are on patrol command, just getting great scouts off, great vision of, hey, what is the Protoss player doing? But some Speedlings are trying to make it into the main base, not going to be able to there though, because we do have the Zealots there. Surprised not more upgrades coming down in the moment for Real. That is the only mistake I might say, but some Zerglings on the way through to the 3rd base. They're not going to be able to do too much. There's a good number of Zealots, a good number of Colossi here, so that is going to allow things to get cleaned up. The concern, as I've already mentioned though, is the Broodlords. Only 2 Stalkers on the field for Real. He still has no idea this Spire is down, let alone the Hive and Greater Spire are on their way. So the Broodlords may come as quite a shock to Real. And without Stalkers, you're not going to be able to engage them well. But of course, we are at the 16-minute mark. VortiX, I don't feel his start was that good. The opening, I didn't really like. I think there was no advantage VortiX had to getting those Infestors out sooner by skipping the 3rd base and getting the gas. And as a result, he would have been really in a much stronger position had he had that 3rd up sooner. But the 4th was quite quick, so he should be fine there. And I suppose he did force the cancel on the 3rd base. So now we see a nice position for Real. He's pushing in before the Broodlords are done, which is exactly what he needs to do. So many charge shots here, and they are moving straight in. They're doing great damage to the spines. The Broodlords, there's 10 morphing up at the 3rd base, and once they hit, well, Real is going to be in some massive problems. The Infestors are going to have to buy VortiX some time, though. He's moving forward. The Broodlords nearly done. The 4th base definitely going to fall, but now the Broodlords are here with the Infested Terrans. This Protoss player is certainly going to start struggling. VortiX is forcing Real back. He's having to pull back, seeing those Broodlords now. And without many Stalkers, without Blink, which is only just starting in response to this, we're suddenly going to see VortiX swing this game into his favor quite massively, instantly rebuilding that 4th base. But he may not even need that if he chose to go and just walk over Real, because he's a good 40 supply ahead. The Protoss player now grabbing out, obviously, the fleet beacon, ready to start teching towards the mothership, ready to start getting that Vortex out in order to VortiX. So, yep, here we go. We've got a bit of engagement here. The Broodlords able to get some good damage. You can see just how strong they are. Even just a couple of volleys from those Broodlords deals huge amounts of damage. The Roach is moving forward. The Infestors are also threatening a fungal growth. Does manage to snag 2 of those Colossi, and with that, the Broodlords are able to make up some of the distance. Real tries to pull back and tries to defend it, but as we can see, the Broodlings are able to get the finishing shots off. Getting 2 Colossi there was a massive win for VortiX. But what's this? We've got some charge shots coming in towards the 3rd base. A lot of damage going to be done here. They are, of course, 2-0. +3 is now started. Blinkingly done. The fleet beacon up, so Real is desperately needs to start his mothership. And, well, as we can see, the Broodlords still relentlessly pushing forward. The Stalker count slowly getting higher, up to 18, but against 2 Broodlords, that's still going to be very tough indeed. Looking around, we've got what is the Phoenix still just running around. A Warp Prism coming in towards the natural base. The 3rd just survived for VortiX there, but as we can see, the natural for Real under massive siege. But in come the Colossi, some great fungal growths hitting though, preventing those Stalkers from coming too far forward. Good little bits of micro. A few Broodlords are starting to go down now. Some reinforcing the Zerglings and Roaches would be very helpful, but of course these Stalkers are just too few to be able to deal with the Broodlords in time, and VortiX able to keep pushing forward. Nearly 100 supply ahead now, and with that, he should win the game. And there we go. Real is GGing out, so game 1 goes to VortiX. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, if you did enjoy, make sure that you like the video, leave a cool comment, and of course subscribe, and then flick over to game 2 of this best of 3. It's on my channel. I'll see you there any second.